Hey everybody, it's your man James, Mr. One Treasures, back again with some more video action for you. And no smooth or funky intro music to this one. This is something a little different. I just thought for a change, I tried to do a little something not in my usual shtick. As you guys know, with this channel, I've always tried to make it about the comics, the work, the art, the culture, stuff like that. I never want to make it about me. I never thought I was very interesting as a person, so I never want to make have not that ego about myself to make it all about me. But today I decided to I was digging through some old stuff in a box, and I came across this stuff, and it was kind of interesting. So I thought I'd share it with you guys. Just you guys know I'm the huge comic geek, but I don't think some of you may not know how deep that runs with me. So I thought maybe it'd be kind of fun, show you some cool stuff that I've amassed over the years that shows you just how deep the love runs in me as far as the comicness goes. So let's have a little fun with this and check some stuff out. But before we do, I want to thank you all for joining me today and say I hope you're having a good one. And if you do, please like what you see here, give a like down on the video, help out the algorithm. Always appreciate it. Also, if you got any comments on anything you see here, anything I talk about, drop some comments down below. Always want to hear from the folks. Your voice matters around here. And also be sure to shout out some links and bring in some other people so they can check this out. Maybe we can get those subscription numbers up, because that's always the ultimate goal for me around here. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you have, so you don't miss any of the content around here that I'm putting out on the regular. Because otherwise, what's the point in doing it, right? So with all that out of the way, the little shill, let's get on into it. And we'll start this off with something that you guys may have seen before, but some of you may not have. So we'll get me off the screen, and then we'll start sharing. Now you're wondering, what is this, James? Well, this is something kind of special for me, because this was the very first item I ever bought at a comic convention. My very first comic convention, as you can see, like dated down here. You can see right here on the piece, dated 1994. And that was my very first comic convention in 1994. And I remember when I went into it, I didn't even go in with the thought of like there's going to be stuff here to buy. I went in there because I heard the creators were there, and so I brought like a whole bag full of books to have all these different creators sign for me at the show. And that was my intention in going to the show, was to get autographs, not to buy a bunch of stuff, not consumerism. But as I was there for it was a 3-day show. I was there on Friday and Sunday. I couldn't make Saturday, but I was there Friday and Sunday. And so I got a whole bunch of stuff signed, met a whole lot of creators, including this one here, someone who you guys know me very well of having connection with, the Aaron Lopresti. And this is probably the first time I met Aaron. And I'll just back this up right now for him and for everyone else who's got the question. Yes, he had hair back then in 1994. I distinctly remember he had hair on his head. So, when you see him now, you're thinking, oh, he's always looked like that. No, 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 no. He actually did have hair back in 1994. So just want to put that out there. But I remember I was getting ready to leave the show, in fact. And, my brother was with me, and we both decided, we got to buy something while we're here. We can't just go through all this stuff and not have like something that we bought to tangibly, touch upon what we've just been through in this experience. So we came to Aaron's table, and he had a whole bunch of prints out on the table. Like, I think they're like $2 or $3 a piece. And my brother, he picked a Vampirella one that Aaron had done. And of course, as you can see here, I picked a good old Spider-Man. And you can see from this is definitely not the Aaron Lopresti that we know today. Like when you see his art today on books like Wraith of God and Kit Carter, very different. And like his Spider-Man here is like just, I mean, good Lord, it's like, is he taking venom or something? What is it? He's so jacked. But, because your Spider-Man, he's supposed to be wiry and stuff, because he gets all those crazy, acrobatic, poses, like a contortionist and stuff. That's what you expect. Here's like big and beefy. It's like who's it? Is that Eddie Brock in the suit? Does he have the Venom costume looking like the red and blue suit? What is going on here? But I just remember I saw this, and it was just so impressive with with just how massive he made Spider-Man. It's like like just all that musculature. It's like it's Spider Hulk. And I got it for that reason. And I still have mine, as you can see here. I still have it, but my brother's has been lost to time. It was lost to time, and he had, I don't know what happened to his, but he he stopped. I mean, he just lost it somewhere and it got destroyed, I guess, or misplaced, or maybe thrown out. Who knows? He didn't. He didn't have the love that I had. So for me, it was important. And in fact, this actually was for a long time in a frame, and I'm going to show you that here in a second here, I think. So I'm going to stop and then bring me back just for a second here to show you this. You can see right back there. You see that Spider-Man print there by Bagley and Emberlin? It's right up there, right there in that golden frame. Yeah, that's where Aaron's print was for like about 10 years. I had it in that frame. I got the frame for it and I framed it. And it wasn't until I got that one. I got the print from Randy Emberlin, and that was in '98. And then like several years later, like 2004, 2005, I saw Bagley at a show and I had him sign it. And then after that, I switched out Aaron's piece for that one, because Aaron's a great artist, but like, let's face it, Bagley, he's known for Spider-Man, and so that's why I switched him out. But for like about 10-year period there, that Aaron print was in that frame you see right there. So that was definitely something that was very special to me. It mattered to me a whole lot. Like I said, and I still have the print. It's now in a a box in my closet. Like I said, I came across some of this stuff, and that's why I got the pictures here for you. But that was definitely a fun one. Just a great time. My very first convention experience, and it was very overwhelming. It was very overwhelming for me because I'd never seen that much comic stuff ever. I'm like, is every comic in the state in this thing? Is that what this is? Because there's just so much stuff. But we'll get back to it here and start sharing the screen again. And but the next piece here we have is a part of a two-parter. So let me share up the screen here. Now this is from Bo Smith, who most of you guys probably know from his run with Guy Gardner Warrior. Bo Smith, the last real man in comics. And this is like a little something he sent to me along with a print, which I also have here as well. I'll show you that in a moment. But here's a little note he gave to me. It was, as always, thanks for the backup. It's artwork. It was by Mitch Bird right here. It's pretty much, I mean, there it is. Big action, aliens, and sexy babes. I mean, what more can you ask? What more can you ask? But I got this because what had happened is I remember I was working at a comic shop at the time, and Bo had his Flying Fist Ranch online. You can see right there the address, and he would do like these sort of like blog posts basically of like him talking about stuff. And in one he talked about how one of his favorite artists, his most favorite and underrepresented artist, like who didn't really get a lot of accreditation, was Don Heck. And when you think back to the Silver Age, that's kind of true, because you had Kirby, Ditko, Big John Buscema. Over at DC, you had the guys like Gil Kane and Kurt Swan. These are all guys who like became legends, and Don Heck was around at that time, but he just never quite got that kind of play that those guys did, and so he was kind of like the also ran, the underappreciated guy. And he said that's his favorite underrated artist. And when he did this post, I was thinking about myself. I'm like, well, who do I think is like a really underrated artist that a lot of people don't give much play to that I really like? And I came up with Bob Brown, who you guys, if you ever heard of Bob Brown, you've probably seen his work. Again, he's not very razzle dazzle in his style, but his style really works, and he's a great visual storyteller. But again, he's just not got the appreciation that a lot of guys, say in the Bronze Age had. This is when we had guys like Mike Ploog and John Romita Jr. and guys coming up like I think even some of the earliest Michael Golden stuff was coming out in like the Bronze Age. So I mean, like, these were the guys who were like John Byrne, of course, just the monster that was John Byrne at the time in the Bronze Age. So I mean, these guys were like the it guys, and again, Bob Brown just didn't stack up against them, but his visual storytelling is some of the best, I think, of the Bronze Age. And so as I was working at the shop, I was digging through some stuff for the store, and I came across this issue of Daredevil that was penciled by Bob Brown and inked by Don Heck. And I'm like, oh man, Bo would probably love something like this, because it's like our two favorite underrated artists together on the same book. And I'll even tell you, it was Daredevil number 109, which, funnily enough, side note, I found out later that was the issue that was on newsstands when I was born. It's crazy, but so I got it, and of course you can see here he has his address right here. So I sent it to him, with a little note saying, hey, I saw your post about Don Heck. I said, well, I wanted to say this because he inked it. I said, but he's inking the guy who's my favorite small time, like, underappreciated artist, Bob Brown. I said, so it's the two of them working together. I thought it was kind of cool. And he in response sent me this notice here, and then this print here. I think it was character Cobb. I think is what his name is. He was outnumbered but never outmanned. Your amigo. I just love that, and great art by the late Eduardo Barreto. Just great art right here. I mean, you just see, he's got that rough and tumble style, that grittiness in his work, like in those, like right up here on the arms, in the face. But yeah, he sent me these two pieces, and then he even emailed me afterwards and thanked me for sending him the book. He goes, he even told me, he goes, getting that book and reading, he goes, it was like coming home to an old friend. Because I'm sure, like, this is the kind of stuff he grew up reading, because as you guys know, I'm one of the last of the old school letter hacks in the 90s. I was never as prolific as, say, Uncle Elvis Orton or Jan C. Childress or Tu Sorensen or Augie DeBleck Jr. or any of those guys. I wasn't as prolific as they were. But, I had more than a few letters printed in my time of being a letter hack, and enough to say I'm a minor letter hack. And if you know anything about the Bronze Age and stuff, that when you look in those letters pages, you'll see some Bo Smith letters in there. So he was kind of one too. So I mean, I know he was reading that stuff at that time, and so I just loved how he phrased that. It's like it was like coming home to an old friend, because you didn't see that kind of stuff anymore, in the comics. The way they were being done, like in like the late 90s and early aughts. It was very different, 30 years earlier, and but yeah, it was a nice little treat to get this from Bo. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun, to do that. And I was very, very, very appreciative and of him to send something back. Because I sent it to him without any expectation of getting anything in return. So, for me to get these great prints here were just kind of awesome, and I love that. So, I always appreciate that. Bo Smith's a funny guy. You read his stuff. His comic work is also. You read his blog. He's a very funny guy, and very self-deprecating, which I always appreciate that. I like people who can laugh at themselves. But yeah, that was a fun one. Just a little something fun. Like I said, just something nice I did. I do these things from time to time. I just go out on a limb and do something nice for somebody like that. And then we got probably my biggest one, and this right here. It's right here. It's from Bill Mantlo, probably one of my top 5, maybe even top 3 favorite comic writers of all time. Is Bill Mantlo. I love his stuff. His Spider-Man, his Hulk, the Micronauts. Rom, of course, is one of my favorites. And of course, Cloak and Dagger, his signature creation. I've always loved his work, and so I found out, around this time in the late 90s, why I hadn't seen any of his work in like a decade. I'm like, he was doing all this great stuff up until the 80s, and then all of a sudden he just disappeared. I'm like, why Bill Mantlo quit? And I found out that he had a horrible accident. I think he was rollerblading, I believe it was. Maybe he was on a bike, but definitely something like that. And he got hit by a car and suffered brain damage. And so, of course, he couldn't write anymore. And, I felt really bad about that. And so I'd sent him, a little note telling him just how much his work meant to me, and, a little card of appreciation, and, a little holiday greeting at the time. And I got this letter a little while later from it. And, you can see right here. Now I'm not worried. Oh, God, James, you just doxed yourself. No, that's an old address. I haven't lived there for a very, very long time. But here it is here. And he goes, thanks for the holiday greetings and the encouraging note. I really appreciate your taking the time to write me. It's nice to know that people enjoyed my work with Marvel after all this time, as I took a great deal of pride in it. I hope you and your family had a happy holiday season, and I wish you all the best in the new year. And, there it is right here. You can see there's a signature, and this led to me doing something. After I got this back, it led to me doing something else that, I think it was the next year in 2000 I did this. And I titled it The Mantlo Project. And what it is, I went out to people. I said, if you want to send a note or a card or anything to Bill Mantlo, send it to me. And I'm going to compile all this stuff to him. I'm going to send a big package which is all these notes of appreciation for his work and stuff, and all this kind of like goodwill towards him. And people responded. I got like a few dozen like cards and stuff. One guy even did a collage. I guess he must like cannibalized a bunch of comic covers that were books that Bill had worked on, and he made a collage out of it and sent that along. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of awesome. And so I put it all up and I sent it out to him. And I'm sure that probably even more so than my one letter I did here this year, that would probably really something that really touched him. I hope to let him know just how important his stuff was to me, because like I said, he's one of my all-time favorite writers, and he's done a lot of great work on a lot of great characters at Marvel. And I really appreciated his work. I've always said that like Bill Mantlo is the kind of writer we need in comics today. He's been billed as the man who could get any character's voice just right. Because like it was never about him, taking the character and dictating the character to the story he wanted to tell. It was about tailoring his story to fit the character he was using. He respected the character, their voice, their lore, and that's something very much missing in the comic industry today. We don't have creators who feel that way anymore, it seems. And so like a Bill Mantlo is like more needed now than ever before. And so I was glad to do this. It was a fun thing to do. And like I said, I do these things from time to time. I'll just just out of the blue, just feel like doing something nice for somebody like that. But this was like the big one that I did. It's a very special one for me. And like I said, getting this, I still have this letter to this day. I still have it because it was that touching to me to actually get a personal letter from the creator themselves. That's something a little special. And the last thing I got here for you is, now this is not so much to do with me being with creatives and stuff, but I just was at my local grocery store recently, and I saw this in one of the aisles, and I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? It's comic books in a grocery store again. Now, we all know the newsstand is gone. It's never coming back, most likely. But I mean, like, just again, this is just a reminder of kind of some of the stuff we've lost. I mean, remember, this used to be a standard to see something like this in a grocery store, and I don't know why DC did this. Was it just they had stock sitting around? It's like, oh, we don't know what to do with it. Just send it out to some grocery stores. I don't know how this happened or whose idea it was, but I was just really surprised when I saw this. It was like, wow, comic books back on the newsstand. And I'm just wishing it could have been something a little better than some of this stuff, more modern stuff. I wish the modern books were better, so that having them out there felt like more of a real true event. But I mean, just to even see this is just kind of funny. Reminds me the nostalgia of it all. Being in magazine shops and grocery stores and drugstores, and you find comics in the magazine section and stuff. That's just kind of cool to see that. And I just wanted to share this one with you because I just thought this was something, again, just something kind of fun that I came across. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I'm like, wow, talk about a retro throwback. I mean, just, the days of yore for all of us old guys who, us Gen Xers who remember seeing this as a standard back in the day. This is what we saw all the time. This is, nowadays, I'm sure the kids today, they probably see that and like, what is this? Like, they have no idea. For me, it's like, oh, I know exactly what this is. Just something, like I said, just something fun here I saw. I had to share it with you guys when I seen it, because I just thought it was kind of fun. And just, again, just, why aren't they trying more things like this? I don't understand in the industry today. I don't know who the people in charge are. They're clown shoes. They're morons. They're retards. Because this seems like such a simple thing to do. To try to generate more people into the comics. You got to put them out there where people are going to see them. And but it is what it is. That's the way of the industry today, I guess. But yeah. But like I said, this was just something really special to see. It's like, wow, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was kind of awesome. And there you go. That's going to be it for this one. Just a little quickie here, not too long, only about 20 minutes. But I just said some cool stuff. It shows you just how deep the geek runs in me. Okay, I've been at this for a long time, and it's been very very important to me. And just so many things. I got little doodads and little trinkets, little nods to my love of this hobby and this art form. And I just let you guys enjoy seeing some of that, checking it out, having some fun with that. But it's definitely, like I said, it definitely just shows me how deep it all runs for me. You guys, if the channel here or with what I do isn't enough of a hint to you, I think this should probably give you some hints to just how deep it runs. Like I said, you could, if you cut me, you got 50-50 chance of getting blood or printer's ink, most likely, and that's the reality of it. But I thank you all for joining me today. I hope you saw some cool stuff here and had some fun with it. I certainly did. I certainly enjoyed bringing this to you. Like I said, I don't normally make this channel about me, but with this cool stuff, I thought, why not? Just do a little one. Just don't make it a regular thing to be all about you. You're not an egotist, but this is some cool stuff you should want to share with people. And so I'm glad I could share that all with you today. And I want to thank you all for joining me today and say, once again, if you like what you see here, drop a like down there, help out the algorithms. Also, be sure to check out those links down in the description for more stuff, that's a little less focused on your boy and more focused on, the comics, themselves. And if you like what you see here, drop some comments down there. What did you think? Did you see some cool stuff here? What did you think of that note from Bill Mantlo? How about the Aaron Lopresti Spider-Man? Should he be jacked like that, or do you think Aaron kind of has grown as an artist, and so now he does a better job where he understands? He doesn't have to look like the Incredible Bulk right there. Just let me know what you guys think. I always want to hear what you got to say, and to share out some links, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of this crazy content that I'm making. So I thank you all for joining me today, and I will be back soon with some more stuff. And until next time, take care.